Take your things and leave.
Amaka, please, let's talk.
Talk about what? Another broken promise.
I'm trying. Business is slow.
Trying doesn't pay bills.
The sound of the old travel bag hitting the ground was louder than the shouting. It landed right beside Newell's feet. Dust rose into the hot Lagos afternoon air. Neighbors began to gather near their gates. Some pretended to sweep. Some stood openly, staring. Children paused their football game in the street. Amaka dragged the bag across the tiled floor and pushed it out the door. Her face was hard. Her eyes were cold. "I can't suffer with a man who has no future," she said loudly. The words hung in the air like smoke. Newell felt something inside his chest break. He stood there in silence, holding the small brown suitcase that carried all that was left of his pride. What no one knew, what not even Amaka knew, was that at that exact moment, several streets away, a line of black luxury SUVs had just turned into their neighborhood, and they were looking for him. But it had not always been like this. 3 years earlier, Nuel Peter was the man everyone admired. And he was not rich, but he was respected. He ran a small import business in Aba, selling electronics. He woke up at 5 a.m., traveled long distances, negotiated deals, and came home tired but hopeful. Amaka used to call him my king. She would wait by the door when he returned from trips. "You work too hard," she would say, massaging his shoulders. "For us," he would reply, smiling. Back then, the future looked bright. They rented a neat apartment in a quiet compound. They dreamed about buying land. They talked about having children. But business is like the weather. It can change without warning. First, one shipment was delayed. Then customs problems started. Then a partner ran away with part of their capital. Within months, Newell's savings disappeared. He sold his car, then he borrowed money. Then the calls from creditors began. At first, Amaka supported him. "We will overcome this," she said softly at night. But weeks turned into months. The fridge became empty more often. The landlord started knocking, and slowly, her voice changed. One evening, rain poured heavily outside. The power went out. They sat in darkness. "Newell," Amaka said quietly, "how much do we owe now?" He hesitated. "Just a few people. I will settle it soon." "How much?" she repeated. He swallowed. "Almost 2 million naira." The silence that followed was louder than thunder. 2 million, she whispered. "Yito, I can fix it." "With what money?" "I am working on something." "You have been working on something for months." Her words felt sharp, but he understood her fear. Later that week, she visited her friend Ifunanya. When she returned, she seemed different. "Ifunanya's husband just bought her a new car," she said casually. "That's good for them," Newell replied. "They traveled to Dubai last month." He nodded slowly. "And here we are," she added, looking around their small sitting room. "Our comparison is a quiet poison." It entered their home and refused to leave. The final argument happened on a hot Saturday afternoon. A creditor came to the house. He stood outside shouting, "Nuel Peter, pay my money." Neighbors peeked from their windows. Amaka stood frozen. After the man left, she turned to Newell. "I am embarrassed," she said. I told you I would handle it. You said that before. Do you think I enjoy this? I cannot live like this anymore. So what do you want me to do?" he shouted back. She walked into the bedroom. Minutes later, he heard drawers opening, zippers, hangers clashing. Then she returned with the old travel bag. "Amaka, stop playing." "I am not playing." She began packing his clothes. 1 shirt, 2 trousers, his worn shoes. He felt like he was watching someone else's life. "You cannot throw me out," he said softly. She dragged the bag to the door. "I just did." The afternoon sun was bright, too bright. It made everything look clearer than it should. Newell stepped outside slowly. Some neighbors whispered, "Is that not Newell?" They said his business crashed. "Chai, see how life is." Amaka stood at the doorway, her arms folded, her chin lifted. "Go and find yourself," she said. "Come back when you become a real man." He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. He felt small, smaller than he had ever felt in his life. He picked up his suitcase, and then a deep engine sound echoed at the end of the street. Vroom. One car, then another, then another. Heads turned, children stopped playing, even Amaka frowned. From the corner of the street, 3 black SUVs slowly appeared. Shiny, polished, with tinted windows, they did not belong in this modest neighborhood. People stepped aside as the convoy moved closer. And Newell stared. His heart began to beat fast. The cars did not slow down. They drove straight toward him, and then they stopped directly in front of the house he had just been thrown out from. All engines shut off at the same time. Silence, doors opened, men stepped out, tall, wearing expensive suits, dark sunglasses. One of them removed his glasses and looked straight at Nuel Peter. "Mr. Nuel Peter?" the man asked calmly. The entire street held its breath. Yamaka's face slowly changed. "What is going on?" she whispered. The man walked closer. "We have been searching for you for weeks." Nuel blinked. "Searching for me?" "Yes, sir," the man replied. "On behalf of the Adeyemi Trust, we have urgent matters to discuss regarding your late father." Nuel felt dizzy. "My father," the man nodded. "It is very important and very confidential." Behind him, another suited man stepped forward holding a brown envelope. Thick, sealed, official. Our neighbors began to murmur louder. Amaka took a step forward. "Nuel, what is this?" she asked softly. But the suited man spoke again. "Sir, we apologize for arriving without notice. But you are the primary beneficiary of a matter that must be addressed immediately." Primary beneficiary? The words echoed in Nuel's head. He looked at the envelope, then at the cars, then at Amaka, the same woman who had just told him he had no future. The suited man extended his hand respectfully. "Mr. Peter, may we speak privately?" And just as Nuel opened his mouth to respond, another black SUV turned into the street, this one larger, more luxurious, with a flag mounted on the hood. The entire neighborhood gasped. The door of the final vehicle began to open slowly, and whoever was stepping out seemed far more important than everyone else who had arrived. The door of the last SUV opened slowly. Every eye on the street followed it. A polished black shoe touched the ground first. Then another, a tall elderly man stepped out, dressed in a spotless white native attire. His walking stick shone under the afternoon sun. Two security men stood behind him quietly. The street went silent. Even the birds seemed to stop chirping. Nuel swallowed. The elderly man removed his glasses and looked straight at him. "Are you Nuel Peter, son of Chaik Peter?" he asked in a calm but powerful voice. "Yes, sir," Nuel replied softly. The man nodded once. "My name is Chief Bamidele Olatunji. I was your father's closest friend." The words hit Nuel like a wave. "My father's friend," he whispered. He had not heard anyone speak about his father in years. Chike Peter had died when Nuel was just 12. All Nuel remembered was that his father used to travel a lot. He wore fine suits, he spoke in quiet phone calls. And one day, he did not return. His mother had always said, "Your father left something behind. One day, Adit will find you." But Nuel had thought those were just words to comfort a child. Chief Bamidele stepped closer. "We have been searching for you for weeks," he said. "You moved houses twice. You changed phone numbers." "I didn't know anyone was looking for me," Nuel replied honestly. "We know," one of the suited men added. "That is why this has taken time." Amaka stood frozen near the doorway. Her earlier anger had disappeared. Now there was confusion in her eyes. "What is this about?" she asked carefully. The chief turned slowly and looked at her. "And you are?" I am his wife," she answered. The chief's face remained neutral. "For now," he said calmly. The neighbors gasped softly. Nuel's heart skipped. Chief Bamidele motioned to the man holding the envelope. "Open it." The man broke the seal carefully and handed the thick papers to Nuel. His hands trembled as he flipped through them. He did not understand most of the legal language. But one number caught his eye. 480 million naira. He blinked. Maybe he was seeing wrongly. He rubbed his eyes. The number did not change. "What is this?" he whispered. Chief Bamidele spoke clearly so everyone could hear. "Your late father invested in 3 companies 25 years ago. One of those companies grew into one of the largest construction firms in West Africa." Nuel's breathing became shallow. "The investment was locked in a trust," the chief continued. "It could only be released to his only son when certain conditions were met." "What conditions?" Nuel asked. "When you turned 35, and when the board confirmed your identity." Nuel felt weak. He had turned 35 2 months ago. "And this amount," he pointed at the paper. "That," the chief said calmly, "is your share of the matured investment." After taxes and asset liquidation, the entire street exploded in whispers. 480 million. Is it dollars? No, Naira. That is still huge. Amaka stepped forward suddenly. "Nuel, this must be a mistake." But Chief Bamidele shook his head. "There is no mistake." One of the lawyers added, "There are also 2 properties in Lekki and a commercial plaza in Abuja under your name." Nuel's knees almost gave way. He grabbed the side of one SUV for support. This could not be real. Just minutes ago, he had been called a man with no future. Now, he was being told he owned properties in some of the most expensive places in Nigeria. Newell slowly turned toward Amaka. Her face had gone pale. The same neighbors who watched him get thrown out were now staring at him like he was royalty. The children whispered excitedly. Amaka forced a small smile. "Newell, come inside. Let us talk," she said quickly. But before he could respond, Chief Bamadel spoke again. "Mr. Peter, we advise that you do not make sudden decisions. Wealth attracts many changes." The chief's eyes briefly shifted toward Amaka. The message was clear. Amaka swallowed. "Newell, please, you know I was just upset." Just upset. Those words felt heavy. Minutes ago she had dragged his bag outside. Now her voice sounded soft. Newell looked at the dusty road where his suitcase still lay. He remembered her words clearly. "Oh, I can't suffer with a man who has no future." The sentence replayed in his mind. Chief Bamadel cleared his throat. "Mr. Peter, there is more." "More?" Newell felt his heart race again. "There is a condition your father placed," the chief continued. Newell froze. "What condition?" The chief's voice grew serious. "Before you can access the full liquid assets, you must attend a private board meeting tomorrow morning in Victoria Island." "That is fine," Newell replied quickly. But," the chief added, "there are complications." The street became quiet again. "What complications?" Newell asked slowly. The lawyer stepped forward. "Another party has been contesting this inheritance." "Contest?" Newell repeated. "Yes," the lawyer said. "A man claiming to be your father's business partner has attempted to challenge the trust in court." Newell's mind spun. "I don't understand." Chief Bamadel looked at him carefully. "Your father had enemies." The word enemies made the air feel colder. "Serious enemies," the chief added. Amaka's eyes widened. "What does that mean?" she whispered. "It means," the chief said calmly, "that this wealth is not only a blessing, it may also bring danger." The neighbors stepped back slightly. Danger? Newell felt confused. One moment he was poor and humiliated, the next moment he was wealthy, and possibly in danger. Life had changed too fast. Our Chief Bamadel turned to the security men. "Make arrangements." The men nodded. "Newell," the chief said gently, "we recommend you come with us, tonight." "Tonight?" Amaka said quickly. "Why tonight?" "For security reasons," the lawyer answered. Newell stared at his small suitcase again. Just minutes ago, it held his shame. Now it looked like the last memory of his old life. Amaka stepped closer to him. "Newell, you don't need to go anywhere. We can handle this together." Her tone had changed completely, but something inside Newell had also changed. He looked at her quietly. "Together?" he asked softly. She nodded quickly. "Yes, of course." He held her gaze for a long moment. "Was it together when you pushed me outside?" he asked calmly. She could not answer. Suddenly, one of the security men pressed his earpiece. "Chief," he said quietly, "we have a problem." The chief frowned. What is it?" "There is a vehicle parked at the end of the street. It has been there for 15 minutes. Everyone turned. At the far end of the road, a dark-colored car sat quietly. Its windows were tinted. Its engine was running. Watching. Chief Bamadel's expression hardened. "Move now," he ordered. Security men quickly formed around Newell. "What is happening?" Newell asked. "No time to explain," the chief replied. Amaka grabbed Newell's arm. "Newell, I don't leave like this." He looked at her hand on his arm. Slowly, he removed it. "I was already leaving," he said quietly. The black SUVs started their engines again. Security opened the rear door for him. Newell took one last look at the house. At the door, where he had been rejected. At the neighbors still staring. At Amaka, whose face was filled with fear and regret. He picked up his small brown suitcase and stepped into the luxury SUV. The door shut. The convoy began to move. And as they drove away, the dark car at the end of the street suddenly started its engine loudly and followed. Chief Bamadel looked out the back window. His face was serious. "They found him faster than we expected," he murmured. Newell's heart pounded. "Who found me?" he asked. But the chief did not answer immediately. Instead, he turned slowly toward Newell and said, "Tell me, before today, has anyone strange tried to contact you about your father?" Newell thought quickly. Then his eyes widened. "There was a phone call last week," he whispered. The chief leaned forward sharply. "What did they say?" "They only said one thing." Newell's voice trembled slightly. "They said, 'The past is coming back for what it is owed.'" The SUV fell silent. Outside, the dark car was getting closer, and the convoy began to speed up. The convoy sped through the busy Lagos traffic. Horns blared, motorcycles swerved, but the black SUVs did not slow down. Inside the car, Newell gripped his small brown suitcase tightly. "Chief," Who are they? He asked again. Chief Bamadel looked through the back window. The dark car was still behind them. They are connected to your father's last business deal, the chief said carefully. What business deal? Newell asked. One that ended badly. The SUV made a sharp turn. The security driver spoke through the intercom. They are still following us, sir. Chief Bamadel nodded slowly. Activate Protocol 2. Newell's heart raced. Protocol? He felt like he had stepped into a movie. Just hours ago, he was standing in front of his house with nowhere to go. Now he was being chased through Lagos. Please tell me what is happening, Newell said. The chief sighed. Your father was not just an investor. He was a silent partner in a massive land development project years ago. The deal involved powerful men. And? Newell asked. And some of those men believed your father cheated them. Newell shook his head quickly. My father was an honest man. Yes, the chief agreed, but in business, truth is often twisted. The SUV suddenly slowed down. Newell looked ahead. Traffic. Too much traffic. The dark car behind them closed the gap. Sir, the driver said urgently, they are almost beside us. Newell's palms grew sweaty. What do they want from me? Chief Bamadel turned to him slowly. If they cannot get the inheritance through the courts, they may try other methods. Newell swallowed hard. Are you saying they might? Before he could finish, the dark car swerved aggressively and tried to block them. The security driver reacted fast. He turned sharply into a narrow side street. The convoy followed. Tires screeched. Newell's heart felt like it would jump out of his chest. The side street was quiet. Too quiet. The SUVs drove fast until they reached a tall black gate. It opened immediately. The convoy entered quickly. The gate shut behind them with a loud clang. Newell looked around. They were inside a large compound. High walls, security cameras, guards. He stepped out of the SUV slowly. His legs felt weak. Chief Bamadel walked beside him. You are safe here, the chief said calmly. Safe? Newell whispered. My father was just a businessman. The chief looked at him carefully. Your father was more than that. Newell frowned. What do you mean? The chief did not answer immediately. Instead, he motioned for Newell to follow him inside the mansion. The interior was beautiful. Marble floors, tall windows, soft lights. Everything looked expensive. But Newell did not feel impressed. He felt overwhelmed. They sat in a quiet office room. The chief removed his cap and placed it gently on the desk. Your father was a brilliant strategist, he began slowly. He invested in land that nobody wanted 25 years ago. Okay, Newell said softly, that land is now worth billions. Newell blinked. Billions? Yes. And some men believed the land belonged to them. But if it was in my father's name, it was, the chief interrupted, but in Nigeria, ownership is not always simple. Newell felt confused. So they think I owe them? Not think, the chief said quietly. They believe they were robbed. Silence filled the room. Newell leaned back slowly. I never knew any of this. Your father protected you from it, the chief said gently. Newell looked down at his hands. His father had died when he was young. All these years, he had believed his father left nothing. Now he was learning his father had left too much. Chief Bamadel opened a drawer and pulled out an old brown file. He placed it on the table. This, he said, is the reason we rushed to find you. Newell stared at the file. What is inside? Evidence. Evidence of what? That your father did not cheat anyone. Newell's heart skipped. So he was innocent. Yes? Then why is there danger? The chief leaned forward. Because if this evidence becomes public, some powerful men will lose more than money. They will lose reputation. Newell's breathing grew slow. And powerful men do not like losing. The chief opened the file slightly. Inside were documents, old contracts, stamped agreements, and signed papers. Tomorrow at the board meeting, the chief continued, you will officially become the controlling shareholder of your father's investments. Me? Newell whispered. Yes. I don't know anything about this kind of business. You will learn. Newell shook his head. I was just thrown out of my house this afternoon. The chief looked at him kindly. Life can change in one day. Newell remembered Amaka's face, her words, her cold tone. I can't suffer with a man who has no future. He felt a mix of pain and strength rise inside him. What happens after tomorrow? He asked. If the board votes in your favor, everything transfers legally. And if they don't? The chief's face became serious. Then we may have a bigger problem. Suddenly, Newell's phone vibrated. He froze. Very few people had his new number. He slowly looked at the screen. Unknown number. His heart began to pound again. Chief Bamadel watched him carefully. "Answer it," the chief said quietly. Nuel pressed accept. "Hello?" he said softly. There was silence at first, then a deep male voice spoke. "You run fast." Nuel's chest tightened. "Who is this?" "You should ask your father that." The room felt cold. "My father is dead," Nuel replied. "Yes," the voice said calmly, "but his debt is alive." Nuel glanced at the chief. The chief's expression darkened. "What do you want?" Nuel asked. "Meet us before tomorrow," the voice continued, "or the board meeting will not end well." The call ended. Nuel lowered the phone slowly. His hands were shaking. "What did he say?" the chief asked. Nuel swallowed. "They want to meet before tomorrow." The chief stood up immediately. "No." "But no," the chief repeated firmly. "That is exactly what they want." Nuel felt trapped. "So what do we do?" The chief walked toward the window. Outside, security guards were already increasing patrol. "We prepare," the chief said calmly. "For what?" Nuel asked. The chief turned back to him. "For a fight you did not know you inherited." Nuel stared at him. Hours ago, his biggest problem was unpaid bills. Now he was standing in a guarded mansion, holding documents worth hundreds of millions, being threatened by powerful enemies tied to his father's past. He felt like two different lives had collided. Suddenly, and a loud noise echoed from outside. Boom. Nuel jumped. "What was that?" he asked. One of the guards ran into the room. "Sir," the guard said urgently, "a vehicle just crashed into the outer gate." Nuel's heart dropped. "They found us," he whispered. Chief Bamadel's voice remained calm. "Lock down the compound." The lights flickered briefly. Security alarms began to sound softly. Nuel stood frozen. "Chief, what is happening?" The chief looked directly into his eyes. Tonight," he said quietly, "you will understand who your father really was." Outside, voices were shouting, and someone was demanding that Nuel Peter step outside. "Open this gate!" The shout came from outside the compound walls. It was loud, angry, demanding. Nuel's heart pounded so hard he could hear it in his ears. Security guards rushed past the hallway. Flashlights flickered through the windows. Chief Bamadel stood still, calm but alert. "Do not panic," he said quietly. "How can I not panic?" Nuel whispered. "They just crashed into the gate." Another loud bang echoed. Boom! The metal gate shook violently. "They are trying to force entry," one of the guards shouted from outside. Nuel stepped back. His mind was racing. "This is because of me," he said. "Yes," the chief replied honestly. The truth was heavy. Nuel felt guilty. If he had remained poor, if no convoy had come, none of this would be happening. But life had already changed. There was no going back. "Bring the monitors," Chief Bamadel ordered. A guard rolled in a small screen connected to security cameras. Nuel stared at it. 3 men stood outside the damaged gate. They were not wearing suits. They looked rough. One of them stepped forward and removed his cap. Nuel gasped. He recognized him. "That man," Nuel whispered. "You know him?" the chief asked. "Yes. He came to my shop years ago. He argued with my father once." Chief Bamadel's jaw tightened. "That is Fatai Arugundade. Who is he?" "He was one of the land partners your father refused to work with." Nuel's heart skipped. "Why?" "Because your father discovered illegal documents." Nuel felt dizzy. "So my father did not cheat them?" "No," the chief said firmly. "He exposed them." The screen showed Fatai shouting again. "Send the boy out. He has something that belongs to us." Nuel's stomach twisted. "He means me," Nuel whispered. Chief Bamadel turned to him slowly. "Oh, listen to me carefully." Nuel nodded. "Your father refused to sign a fake transfer agreement. That land became valuable years later. Fatai believes that if he can control you, he can control the trust." "I don't even know how to control it," Nuel said. "That does not matter," the chief replied. "To them, you are the key." Outside, the shouting grew louder. Suddenly, a gunshot rang into the air. Pop! Nuel jumped. "They are armed," a guard reported. Fear crawled through Nuel's body. But Nuel sat down slowly. His hands were shaking. "Chief, maybe I should go out and talk to them." "No." "But if this is about me—" "Exactly," the chief interrupted. Nuel's voice trembled. "I never asked for this." The chief's expression softened. "Destiny does not wait for permission." Nuel looked down at his suitcase. It was still beside him. Small, simple, a reminder of who he was just hours ago. He thought of a marker. Was she safe? Was she watching the news? Did she know what was happening? His chest tightened. "Can I call her?" he asked quietly. Chief Bamadel looked surprised. "After what she did?" "She is still my wife," Nuel replied softly. The chief studied him for a moment. "Call her." Nuel picked up his phone. His hands trembled as he dialed. She answered immediately. "Nuel, what is happening? People are saying men with guns followed you." Her voice was shaking. "Yes," he replied quietly. "Are you safe?" "For now." "Nuel, please come home." "Home." The word felt strange. "I don't think that is possible," he said calmly. "I was angry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean what I said." He closed his eyes briefly. "You meant it," he said softly. There was silence on the other side. "I was scared," she whispered. "I was scared too," he replied. But before she could say more, another loud crash came from outside. The call disconnected. Nuel lowered the phone slowly. Chief Bamidel placed a hand on his shoulder. "Focus," the chief said gently. "This night will decide everything." Suddenly, the power went off. Darkness swallowed the mansion. Only emergency lights remained on. "They cut the external line," a guard shouted. Footsteps ran across the courtyard. Metal clanged. "Chief, they are climbing the side wall." Nuel stood up immediately. His heart was pounding fast. "Stay behind me," a security guard said. Chief Bamidel's voice was firm. "Do not fire unless necessary." Outside, shadows moved quickly. One of the men managed to enter the compound. He landed heavily on the ground. Security surrounded him immediately. "Where is the boy?" the man shouted. Nuel stepped forward before he could stop himself. "I am here." Everyone turned. Chief Bamidel grabbed his arm. "No," but Nuel pulled away gently. "This is about me." The man on the ground laughed. "You look just like your father," he said. Nuel's throat tightened. "My father was not a thief." The man's smile faded. "Your father ruined lives." "He refused to sign fake documents," Nuel replied. The man's eyes flashed. "He should have minded his business." Nuel felt anger rise inside him. "So that gives you the right to threaten me?" The man leaned closer, despite being held down. "Tomorrow's meeting will not happen." Nuel stared at him. "Who sent you?" The man hesitated, then he smirked. "You will know soon." Suddenly, police sirens wailed in the distance. The sound grew louder. The remaining attackers outside began to scatter. Security tightened their grip on the captured man. Red and blue lights flashed across the compound walls. Within minutes, Humvee police vehicles arrived. Officers jumped out quickly. The situation began to calm. Chief Bamidel spoke quietly with the police commander. Nuel stood still, breathing heavily. He had never felt this much fear and strength at the same time. The police dragged the captured man away. But before he was pushed into the vehicle, he turned his head toward Nuel. "This is bigger than you think," he said calmly. "Tomorrow the truth will shock you." The police car door slammed shut. Silence slowly returned to the compound. Morning came too quickly. The sun rose over Victoria Island like nothing had happened the night before. But inside Nuel Peter's chest, everything had changed. He stood in front of the tall glass building where the board meeting would take place. The Adeyemi Trust logo shone on the wall. Security guards stood at the entrance. Chief Bamidel adjusted his cap. "Are you ready?" he asked quietly. Nuel took a slow breath. "No," he answered honestly. "Andy, but I will go in anyway." They entered together. The boardroom was wide and bright. A long wooden table stretched across the center. Men and women in expensive suits sat quietly. Some faces were calm, some were curious. And at the far end of the table sat the man from the photograph, Fatai Arogundade. He was older now, grey touched his beard, but his eyes were sharp. He did not smile when Nuel walked in. Instead, he leaned back in his chair slowly. "So," Fatai said calmly, "the boy has arrived." Nuel stopped walking. "I am not a boy," he replied. The room grew still. Chief Bamidel nodded slightly. "Good. Strength." The chairman of the board cleared his throat. "We are here to confirm the transfer of shares from the late Chief Peter to his son, Nuel Peter." Fatai tapped his fingers on the table. "Before that," he said smoothly, "we must address an important issue." Nuel looked directly at him. "And what is that?" Fatai folded his hands. "Your father's agreement with us was incomplete." Chief Bamidel stepped forward. "That is false." Fatai ignored him. "He promised to transfer 50% of the land holdings to our group. He never did." Nuel's heartbeat slowed. Something inside him became steady. "You are lying," Nuel said calmly. Murmurs filled the room. Fatai's eyes narrowed. "Careful how you speak." Nuel reached into his briefcase. The brown file Chief Bamidel had shown him last night was inside. He placed it on the table. "My father documented everything," Nuel said clearly. He opened the file. Inside were the original contracts. Signed, stamped, approved. He slid copies across the table. These documents show that the agreement you are talking about was rejected. Because it was fraudulent. The room went silent. One board member adjusted his glasses, another leaned forward. The chairman began flipping through the pages. Fatai's calm expression started to crack. "This is nonsense," he said sharply. "No," Nuel replied, "this is proof." The chairman looked up slowly. "These documents are valid." A quiet shock moved across the room. Fatai's hand tightened into a fist. "You think paper will save you?" he said quietly. Nuel did not look away. "My father refused to cheat this company. That is why he walked away." Fatai stood up suddenly. "He destroyed opportunities." "No," Nuel said firmly. He protected integrity." The word integrity felt powerful in the room. The chairman straightened his back. "Mr. Aragundade, unless you have stronger evidence, your claim is dismissed." Silence. Heavy. Final. Fatai stared at Nuel. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, the chairman spoke again. "All in favor of confirming Nuel Peter as controlling shareholder?" Hands slowly began to rise. 1, 2, 3, then almost all. The decision was clear. The chairman nodded. "It is official. Mr. Nuel Peter is now the majority stakeholder of the Peter Holdings Investment Trust." The words felt unreal. Majority stakeholder. From the roadside yesterday to the head of a multi-million naira trust today. Nuel sat down slowly. His chest felt full, not just of relief, but of something stronger. Respect. As the meeting ended, Chief Bamidel shook Nuel's hand. "You have your father's courage," he said proudly. But before they could leave, the door opened. Nuel turned, his breath caught. Amaka stood at the entrance. She looked different, not proud, not angry, small. Her eyes were red, as if she had cried all night. Security hesitated. "It's fine," Nuel said quietly. She stepped inside slowly. The board members watched with curiosity. "Nuel," she said softly. He stood still. "I heard the meeting was today," she continued. I needed to see you." Chief Bamidel stepped aside politely. Amaka looked around at the expensive suits, then back at Nuel. "I was wrong," she said. Her voice trembled. "I was scared of being poor. I forgot who you were." Nuel did not speak immediately. She took a step closer. "I didn't marry you for money. I married you because you were kind, strong, honest." She swallowed hard. "And yesterday I failed you." The room was silent. Nuel remembered her words clearly. "I can't suffer with a man who has no future." He looked at her gently. "Why are you here?" he asked softly. She wiped her eyes. "Because whether you are rich or poor, I still want to stand beside you." The words hung between them. The same neighbors who had whispered yesterday would soon hear this story. But this moment was not about them. It was about truth. Nuel took a slow breath. "Yesterday," he said calmly, "you believed I had no future." She lowered her head. "Yes. And today?" She looked up. "Today I see that I almost lost the man I love." Nuel's heart felt heavy. Not with anger, but with wisdom. Wealth had come, danger had come, truth had come. Now, choice stood before him. Chief Bamidel watched quietly. The board members pretended to check their phones, but they were listening. Nuel looked at Amaka for a long moment. Then he spoke slowly. "Money did not change who I am." She nodded quickly. "I know. But yesterday showed me something important." Her breath caught. "What?" He looked into her eyes steadily. "It showed me who stands when everything falls." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Nuel." He stepped closer. "I forgive you," he said softly. Her shoulders relaxed with relief. "But forgiveness does not erase lessons." She nodded slowly. "I understand." He took a deep breath. "We will rebuild trust the same way I rebuilt my life, slowly, honestly." She nodded again. "Yes." Chief Bamidel smiled faintly. The chairman cleared his throat politely. "Congratulations, Mr. Peter." Nuel turned toward the large window. Outside, Lagos traffic moved as usual. Life continued. But for him, everything had changed, from humiliation to honor, from rejection to recognition, from poverty to prosperity. And he now understood something powerful. Sometimes the greatest blessing arrives at the exact moment you are being pushed away. If Amaka had not thrown him out, he might never have witnessed the convoy stop. And if she had not doubted him, he might never have discovered his own strength. Nuel picked up his small brown suitcase. He did not throw it away. He carried it with him, because it reminded him of who he was before the money, and who he must remain after it. As he walked out of the building beside Chief Bamadel, reporters were already gathering outside. Cameras flashed, microphones stretched forward. "Mr. Peter, how does it feel to become one of the youngest trust leaders in the state?" Nuel paused. He smiled gently. "It feels," he said calmly, "like destiny arrived right on time." Behind him, Amaka stood quietly, and far across the street, inside a parked car, Fatai Aragundade watched with dark eyes. His defeat at the board meeting had not erased his anger. He picked up his phone slowly. "This is not over," he said quietly. And somewhere in the city, plans were already beginning to form. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.